Hey everybody, my name is Alex Merced from alexmerced.com, and what I want to talk about today is identity politics, and the Libertarian Party. And basically, let me attack each one of these one by one. So first I want to do is separate identity from identity politics. It's human nature for people to want to define themselves and label themselves. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? So a lot of people try to discover who they are, and they define themselves by their lineage, whether that's their ethnicity, race, family line, whatever, okay? So, and what happens when you suddenly identify yourself as something, you have a tendency of wanting to you look for your identity to help connect you with others. So you try to look for ways to develop that identity. So a lot of people, when they find out that they embrace, let's say, their Irish identity, they go back and they research the history of Ireland and learn about Irish holidays, Irish culture, Irish whatever. I'm Puerto Rican, I'm Guatemalan. So I've spent time learning about Puerto Rican culture and Guatemalan culture. One, to better understand my family, to better understand where I come from, whatnot. It doesn't necessarily mean that's identity politics. The fact that you identify yourself as something doesn't mean it's identity politics. Nothing wrong with you trying to define yourself or basically feel comfortable with who you are. Identity politics is politics, meaning power. When you want to use power within the lines of identity, believing that one group should be able to exercise power over another, that one group's rights are greater than another. That's identity politics. When suddenly identity crosses the line of you just trying to define who you are and be yourself, to crossing the line of trying to control others. Whether you're trying to control others because you think that a particular identity group has suffered at the hands of another and you want to rectify that, or whether you think one identity group is better than another identity group, so you want to empower that group. It doesn't matter why. Once you cross that line in wanting to use the lines of identity to control each other, now it's identity politics, and that should be avoided. Rights should be equal regardless of who you are as an individual, regardless of what labels you adopt, how you identify yourself. You are an individual with the same rights to your life, body, and property as anybody else. But identity, regardless of that, is still a thing. People are still going to naturally want to identify themselves. Okay, and again, it's not just a long race. People always get strung up on race, but I mean, for example, I identify myself as a libertarian. And I've identified myself as a libertarian for about 10 years now. And when I first began identifying as a libertarian, I wasn't nearly as boldly, as radically a libertarian as I am now. But because I wanted to learn more about this new label that I was identifying with, I was reading Mises, I was reading Rothbard, I was reading Hayek, I was reading Nozick, I was reading Rand, I was reading all these different authors that are part of that libertarian tradition and that libertarian culture. So the fact that I decided to adopt that label inspired me to learn more and took me further down the libertarian rabbit hole. Okay? Same thing with, and again, the point is, when people choose to identify with something, they tend to want to learn more about it. So what happens is that there's been a new discussion within the Libertarian Party about the bait and switch approach, basically trying to convince people who aren't necessarily radically libertarian to adopt the label libertarian. There's nothing wrong with that. If you are libertarian leaning, if you have libertarian intuitions, libertarian sentiments, I want you to start thinking about adopting that label libertarian. Not because I'm trying to trick you into being libertarian, but because you do show that you may be in libertarian leaning, and once you embrace that label, you may care to learn more. And over time, you'll become more boldly libertarian, in the same way that happens to anybody who adopts any label. They just naturally have a tendency of wanting to sort of take on that role in a greater way. Okay, so, and again, those lines can be profession, those lines could be all sorts of different things that people identify themselves by. Okay, so I don't think it's a bait and switch. I don't think there's anything they're trying to say is dishonest. Basically saying that the only people who should be able to take on the label libertarian are people who have a very strict set of views on the world, and then apply those views and portray those views in a very strict way. But the thing is that most people become deeper entrenched in something Not because they were already there to begin with. It's a journey. I didn't become as boldly libertarian as I am overnight, and I don't think anybody else really did either. It's a journey, and if you prevent people from, and if you discourage people from identifying with the label early on, they'll just be discouraged from that journey altogether. You push them and say, okay, well, until you've adopted these views, you must call yourself conservative, progressive, centrist, something else. Well, then they're going to do research and learn about that label instead. And they're going to be pushed in that direction instead. That's not the way we should be doing things. So, again, there is identity, and that's fine. People are free to identify themselves however they wish by any lines that they wish. There's identity politics. We should not have groups try to control each other. But as a libertarian trying to promote libertarian values, I do want people to identify as libertarian. I don't expect everyone who does identify as libertarian to necessarily be where I'm at. But I want them to identify as libertarian so that way there's a hope that one day they may be. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. My name is Alex Merced from alexmerced.com. If you enjoyed this message, please share this video. Also make sure to like my personal Facebook page, but also like the Libertarian Positivity Caucus. Trying to put out a positive message about libertarianism and just basically trying to give everyone a big libertarian hug and say, welcome to the movement. Let's work together to protect everybody's individual right to their life, to their body and their property, and move things forward. Okay? And not backwards. Thank you. Have a great day.